Here's Brody Brazil.
I do believe it's pretty rare to ever think or say that we might all be feeling the exact same way right now, but also in this moment, it could be true with some World Series hangover and hangovers of different varieties, right? Like if you're a Dodgers fan, back-to-back World Series titles, I mean, the excitement of that, the emotions of that, I definitely understand. Also, if you're a Blue Jays fan and your heart is in a million different pieces right now and being so close in Game 7, literally a matter of inches away from winning, or watching a series back and forth that really could have gone either way, and you know how difficult it was to get there and when is your next chance. More on all of that later on, but I certainly understand the emotions of Blue Jays fans. And how about just the casual baseball fan watching this from afar without a vested interest, but also being super entertained? This World Series was flat out intoxicating. There's no other way to put it. Yes, exhilarating, but also intoxicating. Like we are going to need a few days to almost recover from what we just witnessed. And what I'll do is a separate video here on World Series 2025 by the numbers, because there were so many first-of-its-kind situations. There were so many amazing elements and aspects and unpredictables. I'll document that from a factual basis in a different video. But what I want to do here are my takeaways, my afterthoughts, literally the day after Game 7 and the Dodgers winning it all. This 2025 World Series may have been the most entertaining World Series of modern history. And I don't know how you put it up against a good World Series from the 1920s or the 1950s and the side-by-side comparison, right? Like it's a different time then to now, and everything's documented here and covered so well, and the camera angles and the replays of 2025. It's impossible to ever compare one to the other and say, well, one was the most entertaining. But I'll put it this way. Take 2025 and the 7 games and the storylines and the back and forth. I'd put that up against any other World Series that we know in terms of just being the most entertaining. If it's not the most entertaining, it's top 3, top 5 for certain. You had Game 1 where the Blue Jays came out and sent a message to the Dodgers. An 11-4 win. They batted around in an inning. Los Angeles hadn't played a game in more than a week because they had swept the Brewers in the NLCS. So they were just kind of idle and maybe rested, but also rusty. So the Blue Jays came out strong. Then in Game 3, first game at Dodger Stadium, 2 for the price of 1, 18 innings to decide that third game, which ultimately went to the Dodgers. And we thought, okay, here's the momentum. You win that one. It feels like you won 2 games, even though you only won a single game. But then the Blue Jays would take the next 2. Games 4 and 5 at Dodger Stadium, it was the Blue Jays outscoring the Dodgers 12-3. They did it how they did it all year long with their bats. And then the start of Game 5, back-to-back leadoff home runs within a matter of 3 pitches. When do you ever see something like that in a World Series game? How about the end of Game 6 with that ball in the fence and the double play to end it? And how about Game 7 in extra innings and the force play at home and the collision in left field? Oh my gosh. There's so much I can't even actually go into it all because it gets monotonous and a little bit boring. But just to say that all of these things combined gave us one of the most entertaining World Series in modern history. And I do feel like in this moment, we should at least recognize that. And what a great advertisement for the most simple thing, baseball, which gets criticized in a lot of different ways, and rightfully so most times. But this was just pure baseball. And the casual fans were interested, right? Like this series caught the casual fans' interest. Buzz on social media. Usually it's a football play or a basketball play or something going on in a totally different sport, but baseball really took the stage within the last week and a half, and for all the right reasons. 2 nations, 2 coasts. You had all of North America basically tuning in. You had a cast of characters from the Blue Jay players who had their fathers as the examples as previous Major League Baseball players, or the Japanese influence, obviously led by Shohei OHTANI with the Dodgers. And how about just an absolute abundance of storylines, which also turned into flat out great baseball conversations the next day. I can't tell you how many times within the last week and a half I would see somebody the morning after a big game or a big result, and it was a great baseball conversation. The rules, the strategy, the back and forth. Like this is baseball at its fundamental core. It wasn't about gambling and the over-under, or prop bets, or kind of all that low-hanging fruit of why a lot of people are maybe even still interested in baseball anymore. These were genuine baseball conversations. It goes to the core of what's best about baseball, and I truly feel like we got to that with this World Series, and that's why it was a great advertisement for the game. But also, on that very same note, I take a step back here and realize that the Dodgers winning a World Series might actually impact negotiations for the next collective bargaining agreement with the players. Because you look at a team that this year in 2025 spent $350 million on player payroll. And it's not to say they're the only ones in that 300 plus million category. They're not. But they're a team that's also going to pay $167 million in the competitive balance tax to other teams. Like, the Dodgers are spending more on luxury tax than a lot of other teams are on their actual payroll. And so what if the Dodgers three-peat? Like, I know we're here to talk about the 2025 World Series, but this does kind of open the door to criticism of teams that spend so much and a team in a market like Los Angeles, which can also make so much money. I see it two ways. Like, let's take the Pittsburgh Pirates. They don't spend a lot of money, almost on purpose. They're not competitive, dare I say, almost on purpose. What happens if they spent $350 million? Would they be able to make all of that money back? Would they also be successful? Does this work everywhere? Maybe it does to some degree. Maybe it doesn't to some degree. But the fact that they're spending, sub $100 million is also a problem and an issue that the owners are going to have to deal with each other, and the players certainly don't want a hard salary cap. But again, all of this only thickens the narrative about a division here and a widening gap between owners and spending among teams. And if the Dodgers, again, three-peat in 2026, take what happened here in 2025, and it only brings players and owners, and a lot of even owners versus owners, farther apart when it comes to the CBA expiring in December of 2026. Yeah, at this point, this only adds fuel to the fire of negotiations and bargaining, and look what the Dodgers did because they spent so much. And a lot of owners can point their fingers at the Dodgers right now and say, see, this is what's wrong with baseball. We can't do this. We need a hard salary cap. We need to stop them. We need to control all the spending in baseball, and players are definitely not going to go for that. I do want to say, I don't think money bought the Dodgers a World Series win, because look how close they were to losing it, right? They kind of steamrolled their way through most of the playoffs until they got to the Blue Jays. So spending gets you this far, but the biggest thing it does, it keeps your competitive window open and it keeps your chances coming. Like right here, right now, would it shock you if the Dodgers were at least in the 2026 World Series based on their roster, based on who they've got now, their added experience in the core of that group? Would it surprise you if they were at least in the World Series? Probably not. They're definitely a front runner to be there. I can't say if they'll win it next year or not, but that's what spending does. It keeps your competitive window open and it keeps your chances coming. I want to talk about the Fox broadcasts of the World Series. Let's totally switch gears here again. Running commercials and also doing those in-game interviews, I just don't think they hit as intended. When Ken Rosenthal was interviewing John Schneider, the Blue Jays manager, during Game 7 of the World Series, and there was a replay challenge moment, either a replay needed to be initiated or not, and they looked over to Schneider, who was mid-interview with Ken Rosenthal. Now, I'm not here to blame Ken. He's just doing what he's told to do. But this goes to executive producers with Fox and people with Major League Baseball who greenlit this. It's like Schneider's like, wait, Ken, hang on a second here. We're gonna challenge this or not? We're gonna no? Yeah? Hang on. Mid-interview, he was totally like, I got to get back to work here. And that's not the first time it even happened in the World Series, but that was obviously the final and most recent example. I'm somebody who loves access. I love interviews. I love hearing from people. I just think if you're going to do that, if you're going to have a reporter in the dugout during the World Series in Game 7, do it between innings. It doesn't necessarily need to be live. It also doesn't need to be 3 questions. Ask the 2 most important things, make it quick, try and get something out of it, and then be done. I'm not against the idea of it, but the timing. And running a commercial like a Capital One commercial, like I love Capital One. I'm a customer of Capital One. I've got a lot of Capital One miles that I've used over the years. I'm a very satisfied customer, but seeing their commercials run in the bottom of the 9th of a close game with 1 out, I was at game 5, I forget, but they were running those at Dodger Stadium. It's just bad timing. I don't know if that hits like you thought it was going to hit. Right? Good idea when you thought it up, but actually in execution, it's not. Stop doing that. Please stop doing that. I want to talk about the Jays and their fans. And you think about the storybook last couple of years it's been. They were the last place team in the AL East in 2024. going from last in their division to winning the East this year to overcoming so much in the postseason, beating the Yankees and eliminating the Mariners and Cal Raleigh in his magical season. Oh yeah, also in a Game 7 situation. Like, they had all the momentum, they had all the juice, they had all the mojo. Even until the very end. And they had so many chances to close out this series and just couldn't do it. Again, the force-out play at the plate, the baseball being stuck under the left field wall, the collision by two Dodger outfielders in left field, and somehow they make the catch, and the Blue Jays don't get their winning run. I mean, it's just unbelievably frustrating, and I feel for Blue Jays fans. I understand that. I've been in similar scenarios, and honestly, I'm here to advise you. It's going to take probably months of agony and of rehashing this and reliving this for all these feelings to be subdued and maybe even to move on. It's going to be that long, quite honestly. And you'll hope to get another chance, but I don't know if Blue Jays fans feel like guaranteed to be back in the World Series. It took so much just to get there. On the National League side, again, I've already said it, I feel like the Dodgers are the favorites to be there. But on the American side, I don't know who's going to represent one half of the World Series, and I don't know if the Blue Jays feel guaranteed for that. And that's kind of the pain and the frustration and all these things which could have gone different. Some of them were human intervention. Like, again, that rule with the baseball being stuck under the left field fence, was it really lodged? I know that's the rule. I know it was stopped and stuck to some degree, but was it accessible? What does lodged actually mean? Should we change that rule? Again, so many great baseball conversations. But as much as we've talked about the Dodgers and their success, I also want to say here, I feel for Blue Jays fans who had their heart pulled and torn in so many different directions within the last couple days and weeks. Going back to the Fox broadcast, I'm jumping around here a little bit on purpose. I don't want to stick on one thing at a time. This is not a negative statement about Joe Davis, or this is not a statement against Joe Davis. I think he is a fantastic broadcaster. Maybe not exactly how I would do everything, but I think he's very good at what he does. I'm just here to say, though, that a baseball team's primary announcer probably should not be calling their World Series games on the national broadcast. Now, it just worked out that way. Like, that's not anybody's fault. This is what Joe does for his main job, calling the Dodger games, and this is also kind of not even his side gig. It's really a huge gig to be the number one baseball announcer on Fox Sports. Like, those are two independently huge things, and they just happened to merge. I'm not blaming anybody. Again, this is not negative commentary about Joe Davis. But what I'm saying here is it just felt uncomfortable a lot of times that, especially with an American team and a Canadian team, and all the Canadians were watching the Sportsnet broadcast. They were not watching this one. This broadcast almost felt like a Dodger broadcast for the United States. And Joe kept it as neutral as possible, but Joe's also somebody who's going to be getting a World Series ring from this victory. Not the imitation kind, like the full-scale World Series ring. And so how do you fix this? I think Fox with John Smoltz and Joe Davis could have added a wider booth. Add somebody from the Toronto side. Add somebody that's just a respected baseball name and has some great thoughts. Add that to the booth. Make it a 4-wide booth during this World Series. It just kind of lessens maybe the feeling like we were watching a Dodger broadcast. And again, I'm not knocking Dodger fans. I'm saying see it from your perspective or see it from this perspective. Like, what if this was a San Diego Padres announcer on the World Series? How would Dodger fans feel about that? You understand what I'm saying here. This is not about the individuals. It's more about the situation. I wish that were different, but that's how it played out. One of the last things I want to get to here is just the Shohei OHTANI aspect of the World Series. And for decades and generations, I mean, think about a baseball household name. Babe Ruth, right? There's literally a youth league named after Babe Ruth. And I think there's a Cal Ripken league too and all that stuff. But like Babe Ruth, the most iconic name in baseball for a lot of years and decades and generations. Are we witnessing something of the same magnitude right now? Like when I saw OHTANI pitching in one of those games where he had also slid on the base paths, and so he's pitching out there with dirt on the butt of his pants and the shin of his pants. Like he's got dirt on as a pitcher. That looks like something you see in Little League or high school baseball when the very best player is the cleanup hitter, the shortstop, and also the starting pitcher or the closer. Are we witnessing the magnitude of Babe Ruth right before our eyes, and something that only happens every 100 years? And I know, I get it. Like, we've talked about OHTANI before. We've known about him with the Angels and being a two-way player for years. And man, He'd had nowhere near the success team-wise with the Angels, but now he's a Dodger. He's won 2 World Series in 2 years with the Dodgers. My point is, now that he's on this stage, he's not doing this in, dare I say, meaningless Angels games. He's doing this on literally the biggest baseball stage. So now that we're 2 years into that, are we witnessing Babe Ruth Part 2? And will it breed more? Will we have more players do what Ohtani's doing? Is it even possible that that could happen? But Shohei Ohtani at 31 years old right now has at least several more years of doing this at his prime, in his prime years, all of that to come. I'm just here to say, Blue Jay fan, Dodger fan, Yankee fan, Royals fan, Marlins fan, Cardinals fan, you name it, as a baseball fan, I think we have to take a step back for a second and take a snapshot of this moment. Because 10 years down the road, Ohtani's 41. Heck, he still might be playing at that point if he takes care of himself, and I bet he will. But the point is that you want to capture this almost and say this is a snapshot in time and something that we may not see again in the rest of our lifetime. Those are my initial afterthoughts of the World Series. Let me know what you think. I went way long on that, but I wanted to get this all off my chest. Again, I'm also going to do a totally separate video on just World Series 2025 by the numbers. There were some incredible things, but for the storylines and for what we just witnessed and the hangover that even I am feeling right now, I wanted to get that off my chest. Your comments and what you have to say, I'd love to hear that down below. Also, thumbs up while you're there helps me the video and the channel. And if you're new here, I would love to get you back. The best way to do that is hit that subscribe button. That way I can see you back here for the next one.